Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the 1-800-Gambler Community United National Alliance podcast. My name is Luis Del Olve, and as always, I am honored to be here with you. At our first episode, we introduced everyone to what it is that we're doing, what this is. We are the 1-800-Gambler Community. After that episode, we received a lot of feedback, positive feedback, and we appreciate it. Thank you very much. But we also received a lot of comments and a lot of questions. Most of the questions that we received was about addiction. And that's what we'd like to cover today. We would like to cover with some of the questions that the audience asked us. One of them is, what is a gambling addiction? Listen, that is not, somebody might say, well, what kind of question is that? But actually, we visit some rehab facilities, some facilities that deal with, substance abuse, basically substance abuse. There are very few resources that are gambling specific. And many people don't see gambling to turn into some sort of addiction. A lot of people think that, listen, just stop. All you got to do is stop. A gambling addiction can be as devastating, if not worse, than a substance use addiction. So what we'd like to do today is let's talk about addiction. Let's talk about gambling addiction, but addiction in general. How does it get a start? Because we're going to be talking about gambling addiction, I would like to do it in this format. Because I don't want you to be able to just listen to what I have to say. I want you to follow along because we shall be sharing a lot of important information. So, what is a gambling addiction? Gambling addiction, or what is also referred to as gambling disorder, is a behavioral health condition where an individual loses control over the gambling habit despite facing serious negative consequences. Gamblers, problem gamblers, that is, problem gamblers will always suffer under some sort of financial situation. Listen, as we mentioned in the first episode, gambling is designed that in the short term, you may win. But the longer that you spend gambling, the longer that you are engaged in a gambling activity, more than likely, it's most probable that you are going to lose. So under those situations, a person who is engaging in gambling frequently will be suffering from financial situation. Many people will engage in some sort of gambling. You got to remember, this is entertainment, or just maybe to pass the time. And most will have no problem with it. It is said that over 90% of gamblers are social gamblers. That means they enjoy this form of entertainment in a responsible manner. And it's fun for them. However, for some, gambling can become more frequent and intense due to various factors. We're very curious in nature. And sometimes we'll engage into an activity, just for the thrill of it. Or listen, a lot of gamblers they do it because they want to escape from whatever situation they may be living under. Life is stressful, and many of us are living with a lot of trauma. And there's going to be times that we may not want to deal with whatever the reality is. So what we're going to do is we're going to find somewhere to escape, something to escape from. Okay, so one of the questions that one of our audience asked was, how does gambling addiction start? This is a very complex situation. There is just no one way, or there is just no certain manner in which gambling addiction or gambling disorder gets started. Many things can happen. There are many factors. You have genetic or family history of addiction, especially with gambling. I always say that practice behavior is hard to break. So if either you engage in this behavior over and over and over again, you will develop a habit. And after a while, that habit is going to cause you some kind of consequence. And when I'm talking about habit, I'm not talking about whether it's an addiction or something good, because some habits are good, you know. And so some people will do things just out of habit. Is they're just used to it. But when a habit becomes destructive to you, when it's causing you distress, that type of habit is something that you don't want to be a part of. There are mental issues such as depression and anxiety. One of the many factors to gambling addiction is a mental health condition. Like I mentioned before, many of us are living with a lot of trauma, and those trauma are going to aid us or prompt us to act in certain ways. So we have to be most aware of what is going on inside of us in order for be able to navigate with the things that's going to throw at us. There are many environmental influences. Gambling has become normalized. Society has normalized gambling. It's a legal venture, and we're not saying that you shouldn't or shouldn't engage in it. That is your right. It is your right to engage in this legal activity. But as I mentioned before, gambling is not a risk-free activity. Gambling to some is going to be very, very hurtful. A lot of individuals, their very first venture into true gambling, into really gambling, is at college. When you go to college, this is the very first time that you're away from home. It's not like high school. It's not like middle school, where people are on you for you to do right, to go to class, to do your homework. Your parents always checking up on you. Now you're considered an adult, right? But we have to really understand at what age does the human brain become fully developed at. And although you can be considered an adult at the age of 18, 18 is still a teenager. In an 18-year-old human being, their brain is under construction. So you're going to be susceptible to peer pressure. You know, uh, Although at 18, you cannot legally go into a casino, but you can engage in different forms of gambling. The mental nutrition that you give yourself in those teen years, 17, 18, 19, okay, those teen years is very, very important. You have to safeguard your future. So one thing that we ask is for you to be able to delay engaging in gambling until you're old enough, mature enough to understand the risk. Many of us, due to our character traits, we become more susceptible to addiction. Addiction has certain root causes. And sometimes our character traits, for instance, a person who has problem controlling their emotions, a person who is very impulsive, a person who is very emotional, that person will be more susceptible to addiction. A group that's most susceptible to addiction are athletes. Athletes are very competitive. And just that competitiveness, that thrill-seeking behavior can also prompt you into going into not only engaging in gambling, but become obsessive about it, where you're engaging with it more frequently and more intensely, where you're increasing the number of the amount of money that you're wagering. So here's some common signs of gambling addiction. You're betting more money for a longer period of time than intended. There are times you says, a person can go into a casino and say, you know what, I'm going to go in here on this floor and I'm going to gamble for about an hour. An hour turns to two, then three, then four. Then you're making more frequent trips to the ATM because you brought your credit cards with you. Okay? These are signs that there may be a problem. It doesn't mean that you have a problem, but it means that you need to evaluate how comfortable you are with your level of play. That's what you need to do. You're feeling restless and you're irritable when you're trying to cut down on your gambling. Problem gamblers tend to always want to stop over and over again. They recognize the harm that's causing them, the harm that they're causing themselves. And sometimes they try to stop and they're just not able to. Sometimes it's hard to walk away after you lost a certain amount of money. And when you chase your losses, you better believe that by chasing those losses, you're going to become very obsessed with trying to get that money back. And then what's going to happen is you lost a certain amount of money by betting a certain amount of money. In trying to get that money back, you're going to up your bet. You're going to go higher on the amount of money that you're wagering. And now, in chasing those losses, you're going to lose more money more faster at higher amounts. You're going to be lying to friends because the minute that your pockets are empty, you're going to go borrow some money. And sometimes you're going to lie. And you're going to tell someone, listen, I'm going to give you money within 24 hours. And what's going to happen is you're going to go deeper. Problem gamblers burn a lot of bridges. They burn a lot of bridges because they borrow money. A lot of them are selling their property. They're hawking the jewelry. In most places where you're going to see casino, you're going to see a lot of pawn shops. And they're all making business. People sell their cars. People sell their cars. They went there driving, they'll sell the car just to try to get enough money to hopefully get their car back. They're going to be neglecting personal responsibilities, work, relationship, due to gambling, due to problematic gambling. Gambling, a population that's most susceptible to gambling are youth. As I said before, what is the age where the human brain becomes fully developed at? It's 25. Well, they say for women it's 21. Hey, listen, women are different creatures, right? So they have their biology is different. They bring life. They bring life into the living. So their brain are wired differently. So it says that a woman's brain becomes fully developed around the age of 21. For men, it's 25. Although, if you read some of the articles for the medical journals, they say they're trying to increase the age for men to 35 and the brain become fully developed. But youth are most susceptible to addiction because, like I said, because of brain development. The mental nutrition that children receive at a certain stage in life is crucial. So for parents, if you can see that your child is changing, all of a sudden their changes or their behavior is changing, they're not involved or engaged with the family activities as they once were. All of a sudden their friends are different. They're very secretive. They're running. If it's an adult youth, if it's a young adult, he or she may be running to the mailbox to try to get the mail before they do, because there may be something coming in the mail that they don't want you to know. A youth will become very preoccupied with gambling. Now, video games. There's nothing wrong with video games. There's nothing wrong with a lot of activities that we engage in, but if we become very obsessive about it and we engage in this activity for a very long period of time, it could become problematic. So there's going to be a lot of video games have gambling-like mechanism. So there's going to be some youth who are going to be engaging in gambling while they're video gaming. So you will see this change in them, their behavior, uh, the things that they'll be hiding. They will always be trying to borrow money. Kids will be borrow money. How many times have a child come to you and says, can I borrow your credit card? And most of the time, what they're doing is they buying either tokens or some sort of in-game buying that they do in video games. It could be tokens, it could be skins, it could be loot boxes. These are gambling-like mechanics. And if youth are engaged in this type of activity, their brain are being rewired. And we're going to talk about that a little further about how addiction rewires the brain. Young people and just people who have problem with impulsivity, they have a hard time regulating their feelings. They have a hard time regulating how they interact with people when they're in an emotional state. And yes, like I said, they will start lying. Problem gamblers are very good liars. And we're going to talk to some. We're going to bring some on the podcast here, and we're going to talk about that. For kids who are engaging in gambling or preoccupied with gambling, you're going to see their grades declining. The circle of friends are going to change. They're going to lose interest in whatever activities they do in the school. And just like adults, children will also engage in gambling. It is estimated that in the United States, there are over 2.5 million individuals experiences severe problematic gambling behavior. Severe, we're talking about compulsive gambling. We're talking about very severe disorder gambling, not just problem gambling. These are individuals that are very deep into their addiction. And then you have about 5 to 8 million who may be experiencing some mild or moderate form of gambling, maladaptive gambling behavior. So you're talking about roughly 7.5 to 10.5 million people who are suffering this. And then you have the loved ones. Gambling addiction is not an individual addiction. It's a family addiction. It's a society addiction. And many people are affected by problem gamblers. It is estimated that over 63 million individuals are indirectly affected by problem gambling. And of course, let's talk about the cost of society. Due to job loss, bankruptcy, problem gamblers, disorder gamblers have a very high rate of bankruptcy. They have a very high rate of divorce. Many gamblers will go into committing criminal activities to be able to finance the gambling behavior. The cost for society is estimated to be around $14 billion. Gambling is not a risk-free activity. So there's some prevention strategies that you can use, certain prevention practices that you can practice in order to help prevent a gambling addiction. Like we said before, you want to practice responsible gambling techniques. So you want to set limits as far as money, time, taking breaks often, avoiding gambling when you're feeling some kind of way. That's the best way to say it, feeling some kind of way. When you're emotional, do not gamble if you're in an emotional state, because all you're doing is you're trying to escape from whatever situation is going on in your life. Okay. You want to be able to recognize the early signs of what's going on. This way, in order for you to seek the support that you may need. But in order for you to do that, You have to be aware of you. Okay. Seek ultimate ways, healthy ways in which you want to relax or just have fun. Don't just lock yourself in to just gambling. Every time you want to have fun, or you think that you're not having fun unless you're gambling, that's when you know it's problematic. Just the same way, like if you're partying and you feel like you cannot have fun unless you're drinking, that can be problematic. So it's important for us to be able to educate ourselves about gambling and the risk that's associated with gambling. It's also important for you to maintain open communications with your loved one. Talk to individuals. If there's someone in your life that you trust and you see you experimenting some negative consequence to what's going on, talk to someone. I'm a product of mentoring. I'm 61 years old and I still talk to my mentors. Mentoring works. So if there's someone in your life that you know you can trust, someone that you see that is a responsible individual, someone that you believe that you can put your well-being in this person's hand and they will safeguard you. Ask them. Ask them if they can mentor you. Ask them if they can come and talk to you, if they can be a set of eyes outside of you. And if the gambling problem is so severe, there's also treatment options. Counseling services, certain therapy, support groups. GA. GA is its own entity, its own organization. But we know, and here at 1-800-GAMBLER community, when individuals call the 1-800-GAMBLER, we'll refer them to GA. If they feel that they don't need therapy or that they don't need some sort of some clinical counseling, maybe attending a support group like GA would help. Individuals with alcohol problem or alcohol issues, AA. Same way with Narcotics Anonymous, NA. These support groups are there to help you. And, you have all kinds of support groups. You have support groups that follow the 12-step. They practice the 12 steps. You have others who, they do the smart recovery. Some people just go cold turkey on their own. But see, I don't call it on your own because those individuals who are trying to better their lives, trying to better their well-being, yes, they're not doing with any official clinical treatment, but they do have a support group. They have a support group, whether it's family members, friends, they do have someone to help them. Okay. You can also do medication. There's some individual that can go to a doctor and get prescribed medication. And of course, we always encourage individuals to have some sort of financial counseling. Listen, if you or someone you know is struggling, reach out for help. Reaching out for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength because you recognize that there is something in you that is lacking and you want to make it better. Human being. I have always said that the best thing about being human is the fact that we can build capacity. The best thing about being human is the fact that we can build capacity. However, human beings, we have difficulties with consistency. And sometimes because we have a problem with consistency, we need to rely on someone else to give us a hand. And there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. Here at the 1-800-GAMBLER community, we like to say that, we do say because we're here for support, treatment, and hope. This is what we're about. And when you come here, when you come within this community through that 1-800-GAMBLER number, you will receive the information and have everything that you would need. And if we don't have the information, we will steer you in the proper direction. Addiction does change the brain chemistry. Addiction rewires the brain. So if you're the type of individuals that are involved in activities such as gambling, maybe substance use, this is going to activate the reward center of your brain, specifically the pathway that releases dopamine. And dopamine is a neurotransmitter that's associated with motivation and feeling good. So the more that you engage in this activity that makes your brain feel good, the brain is going to ask for it over and over again. It's going to require you, it's going to prompt you to be engaged in activity that is going to give you that surge of dopamine. So although addiction does rewire the brain to the negative, you can intentionally rewire it back. As I said before, right? The best thing about being human is that we can build capacity. Even when you're down in a situation where you are involved or you have become addicted in a negative way to a substance or an activity, you can recover from that. And it's called neuroplasticity. But the whole thing about neuroplasticity, it takes intentional, constant effort. You're going to have to replace those old negative habits with positive experiences continuously. If you have come to the realization that you are involved in an activity that is causing you a lot of issues, that is causing you stress, is causing you your peace of mind, then you must rewire the way you think. You have to change your mindset. You have to allow your brain to heal. And you have to do so by constantly being engaged in positive activities. You're going to have to be able to get on a program. Listen, there's nothing with the program. Routines are good. I have no problem with routines. Routines will help us become stronger. So a person who may be suffering from an addiction, if they decide to engage in an activity, a positive activity, that's going to help them become well, the longer and the more frequent you are involved in that positive activity is going to make you stronger. But just remember, as we mentioned before, life will show up. When you most think that you are standing on solid ground, life will show up. And you have to be strong enough to navigate through all that array of emotions that you're going to go through when life shows up. But only you can keep yourself safe. Only you can decide what you want out of life. So it's going to be up to the decisions that you make that's going to help you re-regulate who you are, re-regulate your behavior, re-regulate the way you interact with people. Only you can decide to do that. Don't wait until you absolutely hit rock bottom. Engage in self-evaluation. Ask yourself, if you are engaged in gambling and you are doing so every single day, multiple times a day, ask yourself, am I comfortable with my level of play? Because if you're not, and you make that realization that you're not, then you're obligated to do something about it. You're obligated to make yourself better. And the way you're only going to do so is by doing it in a constant manner. And we here at the 1-800-GAMBLER community, we're here to help. If you or someone you know is suffering because of problem gambling, give us a call. We're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Give us a call because we here in this community, we provide support, treatment, and hope. And we hope to see you in our next episode.